What's good, everybody? It's the Clown with Cab Show. UFC 294 was iconic. Shout out to Islam Makhachev getting the knockout victory over Alexander the Great Volkanovski. It was really a great main event card. Even though I thought this card would last all 5 rounds, I thought it was going to go to decision by Islam, but Islam threw that great leg kick to knock out Volkanovski. And really, I look at the referee and say, man, like he should have held him up way before that. And we saw, Islam really land some headshots in the back of the head, which was definitely illegal. But Alexander, he was out. And I look at the ref and say, dude, the ref was way late on that. He should have really had him up, after 5 or 6 shots before that. Terrible job by the referee. Hopefully the UFC fires that dude, because that was a terrible stoppage. Really way late. Alexander was knocked out. He was cold. As soon as he went down, you could see he went limp, dude. And Islam got about 10 more shots in. And I'm thinking, dude, that's terrible. It really is. But, Islam, man, nothing to take away from Alexander Volkanovski. He went up in weight again to 155. He's fighting at, a heavier weight. So, Alexander's not used to this weight, but there's no excuse. Islam's the better fighter. That's why I went Islam. I thought for sure Islam would win by decision, but he won by that leg kick, which was an excellent leg kick. It really was. And we start to see some of these bigger guys in the UFC who have these big muscles, kind of like Alexander, get knocked out pretty quickly, man, because, all those muscles, you start to, get tired after a while. So Islam, what a great game plan. I mean, the Khabib camp, it's just Islam's continuing to get better and better. Now, what's next for Islam is I hope he goes up to 170 and fights the winner, Leon Edwards and Colby Covington, because we have to realize Islam, he fights at that natural weight. That's what he walks around at. Probably walks around at 185, 190. So him cutting all the way to 155 is insane. So I'd love to see Islam go up in weight, go up into 170 and fight the winner of Colby and Leon. I think that's what Islam should do. I think that's great for the UFC. I think that'd be great numbers if Colby handles business in December. We got American wrestling versus Dagestani wrestling. Usman versus, Islam versus Colby Covington. That'd be great. That'd be an epic matchup. But for Alexander Volkanovski, just go back to a 145, defend your belt. And he's talking about he wants to fight in January or February next year. So that's really coming up right around the corner. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Alexander Volkanovski. He's still a champion. Took a chance on 11 days' notice. We have to understand Islam was training for Charles Oliveira for the longest. So he was in that camp training for him, but no excuses on both ends. It was just an amazing main event fight. It happened super quick, and when Islam threw that leg kick, I knew immediately. Once Alexander started just to bulk down, I knew he was out. That's why I said it was a terrible job by the referee. He should have pulled him off, immediately, dude. He was out, dude, out cold. So, hats off to Islam Makhachev with a huge KO victory against Alexander Volkanovski. What a main event card it was. And then we got the co-main, Kamaru Usman versus Chimaev. I thought this fight was great. The first round, I said it best. I said Chimaev's going to look for that takedown within the first minute. What happened? The first minute, Chimaev goes for the takedown, successfully did. And we look at Usman, that first round, he was really in survival mode. He didn't take much damage. He was just, on his back in a weird position, but somehow for 4 minutes survived that. Then round 2, I would give the round to Usman. Usman controlled the fight. We saw Chimaev do a couple takedown attempts, failed on those, and Usman really had a good game plan. I think if this was a 5-round fight, I think rounds 4 and 5 would have just been awesome. But I still think that the fact is, Chimaev is just a better wrestler, and that's really what it came down to. And in the third round, it was super close, and then Chimaev got that late takedown, and we saw Usman in this fight, really fake a lot of the takedowns. And it looked like, Chimaev was biting on those fake takedowns. And then we saw Usman finally go for the takedown in round 3, which I thought was really disguised in a way. Almost worked, but at the same time, Usman was 0-1 on takedowns compared to Chimaev, who was 4 for 12 on takedowns. So, there's a huge difference there. I just think the ground control, Chimaev, about 7 minutes and 12 seconds of ground control, that was the difference there. And I think for Usman, if he had a full camp and was just more ready for this fight, I think it would have played out a little differently. I don't think, Chimaev would have got some of the takedowns that he got on Usman. But, Usman in the past year, we've never seen him on his back before. And then we saw him against the Colby Covington fight. We saw him against the Leon fight. And then this fight, it is kind of, even Usman said after the fight, sometimes, when you win for so long, when you start to lose a couple times, very close fights, you start to question yourself. You start to doubt yourself. You start to question things. But we look at Usman. It takes nothing away from Usman. Usman went up in weight to 185 to take this fight. And I just think for Usman, man, like, if he was more, like, on like, gas on just go, let's get this fight going, I think it would have played out a little differently. The first round, definitely Chimaev won 10-8. Second round, we could really go an even round. I'd really lean more towards Usman. I just think Usman had the better exchanges. Even in the third round, the first 2 minutes of the third round, Usman had some great exchanges in the top game. And then that's when he shot for the takedown. I just think Usman did not want to get taken down, and he did. He finally got back up late with like a minute to go in the third round. But I think this fight should have been a 5-round fight. It really should have. I mean, Usman landed 58 total strikes. And then we had Chimaev land 107 total strikes. So there's definitely, more activity from Chimaev. And Chimaev knew the game plan, and the coaches came up great. He said basically don't brawl with Kamaru Usman, just like you did with Gilbert Burns. That's not going to work out. You're going to get knocked out if you're going to brawl like you did with Gilbert Burns, and there was some discipline there. And we saw that in the second round with Chimaev, and I will give homage to Chimaev and say, hey, he learned from some of his fights. He learned from the Gilbert Burns fight that you can't just stand there and engage and look for a lucky knockout here. That's what Usman wants. He wants to get in these engages. He wants to hit you with the right hand, which he did a couple times on Chimaev. But Chimaev, man, he's young, he's hungry, only 29 right now, really hitting towards of his prime right now. Like, which is scary, right? Chimaev said he wants to smash everybody. It's going to be interesting. Maybe he might get the Paul Koska, fight in the spring and then go for the belt for Sean Strickland. It's just going to be interesting to see. I eventually, Chimaev's going to have a belt at 185. There's no doubt about it. I'd love Chimaev to go back to 170, fight Colby Covington, somewhere in there. But I just think for Chimaev, man, he's the real deal. A lot of people think he was hype. I thought he was hype coming in at first, but watching him fight now, dude, he's learning a lot more, especially on the top feet, on the boxing department. Usman's a great boxer here. So, like, he knocked out Masvidal cold with the right hand, and he threw a couple right hands where Chimaev, if he would have stayed in there a little bit longer, did not shoot for the takedowns. You never know. He could have got knocked out. But I just think Chimaev had a great game plan, and he said, you know what, I'm going to be patient. Even though some of these takedowns aren't working, eventually I'm going to get that single leg, and he did in the third round. I just think Usman should have had better takedown defense. I think it was really bad takedown defense. Obviously a full camp would have been much better, but overall, Usman, he's a great wrestler as well, wrestling background. So there really is no excuse in that department. It's just, Chimaev is a different animal right now. He's more hungry than these fighters. You can see it, dude. You can see it in his punches. You can see it in his grappling. He's just hungry right now. He wants to fight anybody and everybody, and I believe he wants to smash everybody, really. And that's Chimaev right now. So I can't wait to see what holds for Chimaev now. Usman, go back down to 170, maybe even fight the winner of Colby and Leon eventually. Who knows how that's going to play out in the 170 division. We might have Islam go up. But I just think for Usman, it's not over yet right now. But I do think Usman is past his prime. Absolutely. His prime years was, when he won the belt back in 2019 and then just really defended it all the way up until last year. So I think for Usman, there's nothing to hang your hat on. He's a future UFC Hall of Famer, first ballot. Absolutely. What he's done for the UFC has been great. Everything great. Except obviously the past couple fights. But for Usman, man, I do think he is past his prime. I don't see the hunger anymore, the belief that I used to see in Kamaru Usman. Once he fought the Colby Covington fight twice, ever since then, you started to see Usman kind of slow down a little bit. Doesn't have the same gas tank. Doesn't have the same defensive wrestling. Doesn't have the same takedowns that he used to. So I just think for Usman in this sport, it's brutal. It really is. But Usman will be back. He'll probably get another shot at the 170 belt. I do believe that before he retires. It's just hard, man. The UFC is just a hard sport, dude. It's violence. You're getting hit from all different angles, not just in the face, dude. We're talking legs. We're talking thighs. We're talking ribs. Everywhere. So, the UFC is super hard. So, for Usman to last this long, be at the top for so long, is nothing but the best for Kamaru Usman. But Chimaev, his next is the 185. Eventually, he's going to get that title shot at the 185 belt. So, I can't wait for Chimaev. Then we had the Johnny Walker fight on this card, which was crazy. It was a no contest. I don't really know what happened. I feel like, Johnny Walker took an illegal knee. He was down. I think I don't know if he had all four hands down, but he definitely had his knee down, and you cannot knee a grounded opponent. So, like, the dude definitely threw an illegal knee at Johnny Walker, and it hit his face, and he immediately looked up at the ref. And so that's when they didn't stop the fight right then. They said, all right, hold up. Let's look at this shot. Let's look at the replay. It was an illegal knee. And then one of the doctors asked Johnny Walker, what round is it? What's going on? And they said, supposedly Johnny Walker said he's fighting in the desert right now. Really doesn't know what round it is. So at that point, Johnny Walker's not mentally there right now. From that knee, it probably definitely for sure was from the knee, but that definitely messed him up. And then we saw Johnny Walker, and they called the fight, and then Johnny Walker's going to fight the dude, putting his hands up, pushing the ref like he wants to fight. So there was definitely some confusion there. I don't really know what was said. I just think Johnny Walker took an illegal knee. Hopefully they run this fight back and rematch this because, for Johnny Walker, he did nothing wrong. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what was said in the exchanges from the doctor to the judge, but overall, it just looked like Johnny Walker was ready to fight. So I think it really was some confusion. He probably was concussed. That's why they called the fight. They said, dude, we can't let this dude fight. He doesn't even know what round it is. And this is the first round, like the first 2 minutes of the fight. And Johnny Walker's over here looking silly, dude. So, like, I don't know what totally happened overall. But for Johnny Walker, I do feel bad, man. It's just like, dang, a lot of the money was being poured against this guy. Like, Johnny Walker was out to prove something. So, hopefully they run this fight back. It was called a no contest, which is crazy, dude. Like, the dude completely threw an illegal knee. So, like, in some of these fights, we go to a championship fight. It reminds me of the Pierre Young, Aljamain Sterling fight. Pierre Young threw an illegal knee. Aljamain Sterling, it was disqualification, and Aljamain Sterling won the belt because Pierre Young threw the illegal knee. And I thought this was a similar situation. The dude threw the illegal knee on Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker really should have got the dub. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that fight, but it was just a crazy fight. I was just like, what is going on, dude? It really is. But what a time for UFC 294. What a card. Shout to Islam, man, getting the dub, the knockout victory. Hopefully he moves up to 170. Hopefully we see Chimaev fight for the 185 belt. I cannot wait. It's the Clown with Cam show. Let's go!